up, you guys? It's me, your girl, your Casey. How you doing? So, me, right here, I am flabbergasted, stupefied, almost scandalized that I really enjoyed a Ruth Ware book. This has never happened before. I've read one of her other books, The Turn of the Key, which I gave 2.5 stars. I didn't like the whole book until like the last 5 pages, so I bumped it up 1.5 stars. You know, I'm really nice like that. I tried reading The Lying Game and The Woman in Cabin 10. Liked neither. The Lying Game was just way too descriptive and took so long to get going. The Woman in Cabin 10 had... Can you just stop driving? The Woman in Cabin 10 just had so many characters. I could not keep track of who's who. I also pinpointed the perpetrator right off the bat. So I bounced out of that mess. And as a thriller lover, I had finally come to the realization that my least favorite thriller author was Ruth Ware. But then lo and behold, I was meandering down the library aisles and I found One by One by Ruth Ware. The thing about it at first caught my attention that it sounded like, like a retelling or a spin of Agatha Christie's, and then there were none. The people die one by one. And I liked that book. I was excited to see a modern spin on it. And so I was like, okay, I'll give Miss Ruth Ware another chance. And y'all, I'm glad I did, because this was a 4 stars. It was honestly really good, really funny, super suspenseful, and I just have to nitpick a few things that kept it from a 5, but honestly a really good read. So short little description before we dive right in. One by One is told in 2 perspectives. The first perspective is Erin. Erin is kind of the housekeeper of a chalet. I don't really know how to pronounce that word, chalet or chalet. I'm gonna call it chalet, or maybe I should just call it fancy mansion house. Anyways, Erin is basically a housekeeper at Fancy Mansion House. She's the host of the people who pay lots of money, usually business conferences, retreats, large groups of people who just comes into these big fancy mansions and want someone to cook their breakfast and dinner for them. She does this job with her friend Danny, who is honestly my favorite character, because he was the chef of the house, and whenever the thriller stuff was happening and people were dying, he's just there stirring his risotto, and he's like, you guys gotta solve this by yourself, my food's burning. But whenever Erin was threatened, he stepped up to the plate, because they are besties. And Erin likes her job, the people, the clients, the really rich folks who just show up and expect everything to be perfect. Which I guess they're kind of entitled to, because they're spending a lot of money to stay in these chalets. They're difficult to deal with, but she has gladly traded this life from her previous life. That's right, our girl Erin has a dubious backstory that we learn later on in the book. One that she's running away from. One she has not told her best friend Danny. And this newest group of clients who show up at the chalet, one of their members threatens to kind of reveal her past life. So who showed up at the chalet? This is the newest media craze. It's this app called Snoop. Snoop is basically, you connect it to your Spotify accounts, your Pandoras, and through Snoop, you can see what your friends are listening to and listen to their song at the exact moment they're listening to it. Honestly, it sounds really boring to me, but apparently everybody in the Ruth Ware world loves this app. It's the newest thing. So all of their founders, all of Snoop's founders, go to the chalet to celebrate, hey, we're doing good, let's party. And so just like in the Agatha Christie book, And Then There Were None, 10 people arrive at the chalet, including this girl who used to work at Snoop called Liz. She's the second perspective of our book. So we got Erin, the kind of hostess, and now we have Liz, who's the real outcast of the Snoop workers. She doesn't actually work at Snoop anymore. She used to, but we get the feeling that something happened and it made her run out of that county. Did I say county? I meant company. And through her perspective, we can just see that she is nervous, very anxious about being with these people. Liz is wondering what the heck she's doing there. Erin, who is just this person who just met this large group of people, even she's this Liz girl doesn't seem like she belongs to this really posh, rich group. What is she doing here? But turns out that one of the secret reasons this whole group has come together at the chalet is because one of the founders, Eva, who's basically the co-founder along with Topher, who's the big honcho of Snoop, she wants to introduce the idea of being bought out, selling their company. And out of the 10 people, she has some supporters, but she has to go up against Topher. And Topher is just immediately not about that. So arguments are everywhere, people are riled up, but there's only 5 people in this group that has the voting shares, the people who opinion opinions really matter, whether they're gonna sell the company or not. And that group includes Liz. That's why she's kind of been forced to attend this whole meeting thing. And she has personal ties with Topher, who wants to keep the company, and Eva, who wants to sell the company. And she's being kind of like pulled between who her loyalties lie to. Because both of them, Topher and Eva, have a little hold on her for very cool reasons. Now, this whole idea of a buyout was not something that was discussed previously. Eva just sprung this up out of nowhere. Topher got like set off on a rage. He stormed out. So the house is really just like a boiling cauldron of hormones and rage at this point. Our host and hostess, Aaron and Danny, they're trying to like, cool them down, serve them some hors d'oeuvres and stuff like that, open up the liquor cabinet. But hey, they're on this fancy snowy mountains. So they're just like, why don't we all just go like skiing and stuff like that? Just cool down. Just vibe. So they do go skiing, and one of them goes missing on the ski trip. And when everybody gets back home, the little attempts to find this missing person gets halted because an avalanche just comes down and traps them in the house. So already we have one person gone, and then another person, then another. Who's doing this? Why are they doing it? Is this about the buyout? Is this about Aaron's past that's slowly getting revealed by one of the Snoop founders? How long until Liz cracks under the pressure having all these angry, crazy people around her? It's a very locked in book, like you're stuck in this house. But it also manages to paint really good descriptions of just this beautiful mountain that they're on. I've never read a book that had a very snowy atmosphere. Never read a book that actually described a lot of snow. And this one's done really well. Like, it actually made me want to learn how to ski. And I live in Florida. So that's the basic summary. Boiling point tension, business lingo, two girl protagonists, one who's really chill but has a hush-hush secret past, one who's on the point of a nervous breakdown all the time. Beautiful ski slopes, crazy avalanche out of nowhere, and now we got people killing people in the house. So as I mentioned before, one of my complaints about Ruth Ware books is that it's kind of hard to tell what character is who, what they do I even remember their name, how did you get here again, how were we introduced, stuff like that. When there's a lot of characters in the Ruth Ware book, they kind of blend together. However, the first page of this book opens up with like, on a website, has a About Us page, and it has like the person's picture and a little bio. It opens up like that, telling you everything, like a little short description of each person that makes sense, even though it is technically an info dump. Like, if I forgot who Tiger Blue in this book was, because we had a girl named Tiger Blue. I think she was like the accountant of the group or something, but if I forgot who she was, I can just refer back to that first page, and it was honestly really helpful. And it didn't feel like a lazy way to introduce people, no, because this is like a really tech-based company, so it made sense to introduce characters that way. My favorite out of the Snoop founders was definitely Topher, because he's like the obvious bad boy character, the jerk character. And he was a jerk, but he was also a very human jerk too. Like, he had his mean moments, but he also had his breakdown, I'm gonna go cry in a corner moments. Very relatable. He's also the one with the obvious murder motive. Like, we got a bunch of candidates of who was causing all these murders in this Snowden house. Because if you remember, he and his used-to-be girlfriend and co-founder Eva, like, Topher's pro not selling the company and Eva's pro sell the company. So, he's the one to look out for in this book. And people make it known in this book that they're suspicious of Topher. Like, dude, you're the one who would benefit from all these murders. And that leads to a lot of, the breakdown, crying in a corner moments. Very human reaction. Very good. I think Ruth Ware did a really good job at giving like each of these characters. We had at least 12 characters in this book. Really good personalities. Like, they were distinguishable from one another, except one girl who does play an important role. Her name was Annie. Again, she's one of those 10 like higher ups in the Snoop group. Annie was the most forgettable out of the lot, but she ended up having like the most important role. And whenever she's introduced or like brought into the conversation, Aaron, who would be like, or in her perspective, she'd just be like, oh, Annie is so sweet. She's just delightful. And I'm like, I honestly can't remember a thing about Annie. Oh, and mentioning how Topher was my favorite out of the group. If you guys seen Spider-Man 3, then you know the guy who played Venom, Eddie Brock. His name is Topher Grace. So whenever Topher came on the scene, I was just like picturing this Topher like in my head constantly. So that was fun. But honestly, I think the best part of this book was just our female protagonists. They were very smart, definitely had standout personalities, especially Liz. I really enjoyed just like seeing how she responded to all the tension around her. Like, she was so anxious. She's at this point where she's trying to make both parties happy because she is basically the deciding vote whether to sell or not sell the company. So it was fascinating to watch her like try to maneuver around trying to make both people happy. Just seeing how smart she was and just how underestimated she was compared to all the other Snoop founders just because of her disposition and stuff like that. It's also hinted that she had a very abusive backstory. Like, a lot of her backstory is, well, it's told throughout the book. And that's spoilers, but there's one part, like, introduced very early on, where she has this nervous habit of just like cracking her fingers. And it gets on everybody's nerves, just like hearing that sound. But she does it all the time. And whenever she does it, she has like flashbacks of either her mom and dad telling her, oh, evil child, disgusting child, stop doing that, stuff like that. That's the one part of her backstory that I wanted more on. But that's also the part of the backstory that we like got the least amount of information on. I would have liked to seen that part fleshed out more. And speaking of backstories, you know that past that Erin is running away from, our hostess. Erin herself was a great character. I loved her. But it does seem that her super important past just kind of, like, it didn't come out of nowhere because it's hinted throughout the book that she has this past that she's trying to keep hidden. But once you know what it is, it doesn't really matter. Like, it's just kind of a, okay, cool moment. It doesn't actually have much to do with the book itself. It's just a fascinating little tidbit. Okay, let's move on. And so, of course, this book has 12 characters in it, and we only have 2 perspectives. So it is difficult to make sure that like everybody besides our main characters, Erin and Liz, has a noticeable, discernible personality. And Ruth Ware did a good job like establishing traits and a presence in everyone besides like Annie and a few others. But this book's called One by One, so people are going to die or go missing one by one, and it does happen in the book. It's not a spoiler, it says it in the dust jacket. And it's honestly really predictable in this book to tell who's gonna die and when, because like just before they're about to die, they have this what I call a human moment. Like, all of a sudden we learn something about their backstory, or they just have this deeper than usual conversation with one of our protagonists, and then like a few pages later they die or go missing. So that kind of made it kind of predictable. But otherwise, besides these like random monologuing moments about their lives, the dialogue and banter was very funny. Again, Danny in this book, the host, along with Erin, he was like the greatest source of humor. He's the comic relief in this book. He was so sassy, and I need that always. So character-wise, again, very good. I could have gotten a lot more out of the backstories that were obviously a big deal in this book. Erin's, I'm just like, okay, like, interesting, but you kind of hyped it up as this big thing, and it wasn't. One of the people in Snoop, the founders, knew of her backstory and threatened to expose it, but it wasn't really something worth exposing, so that kind of like trailed off into nothing, kinda. Liz's backstory was great, except for that part about her parents that I wanted to know more of. Like, I already loved her and sympathized with her, but Ruth Ware could have wrung even more out of my heart of just telling me how she grew up in that horrible house. Setting-wise and atmosphere-wise, like, it's claustrophobic. We are trapped in a relatively big house, but I could like feel the cold. Like, their door is literally broken off of their hinges because of the weight of the avalanche. So the cold is seeping into the house. They're losing power. Their phones don't work. Batteries are dying. And again, we do have a murderer in the house. People are dying. And it's up to us to find out why and who. But as the one-by-one murders were happening, I didn't really feel suspenseful. I mean, I was interested. I wanted to know who was going to die next, what clues we were going to get. I didn't feel creeped out, which is a big deal with me in thrillers, until we got to this, like the second act climax, kind of 2/3 into the book. That's when I started feeling the tension. I'm going to have to go into spoilers for this point. But before I go into spoilers, I did love this book. 4 stars, very good. Towards the end of the book, there's this epic, like, ski chase. Like, we had 2 characters chasing each other down this big mountain. Skis, avalanche weather, nighttime. Like, that was exciting. I was very satisfied with the resolution, and there are like clues to like help you discern who the murderer is. And it took me 200 pages into like this 330 page book to figure out who did it. But yeah, I figured out who did it, but 200 pages is a long time to figure it out. So that just makes it a good twist. Something you can figure out, but wasn't that obvious. Good plotting, good pacing, good characters. My only, nitpicks that took off that 1 star is just how much I wanted better backstories from our girls, because usually in thrillers, the backstory is the big thing. The obviousness of who was about to get murdered. But that's basically it. Very fun. And now I do want to talk about some spoiler points, some things that I noticed, some things I want to talk about. So, you made it this far, log off. So for spoiler people, I just want to talk about how I found out who the murderer was and everything that led up to that moment and what came afterwards. But yeah, we know, spoiler people, who the murderer was. It's Liz. And it was honestly so well hidden up until, the people who are surviving in the cabin, they decide to split up, which you're never supposed to do in horror movies, by the way. But one party goes to another chalet, the other one tries to go, I can't remember where, but just another area to get some more help. And that leaves Liz and Erin back at the cabin by themselves because they both hurt their ankles. Actually, Erin hurt her ankle, Liz hurt her knee. So of course, these two together, it's revealed that it was Liz who killed Ava, pushed her down the slope, killed Elliot by poisoning his coffee, and then she killed Annie because Annie was the one who realized, after long moments of thinking, that Liz was the only one not present when Eva went by herself and went missing before that avalanche happened. It was honestly fascinating being in Liz. It was very fun being in her head, because I honestly like being in the villain's point of view in thrillers and just about any other books, because I like seeing, how they try to justify their actions and stuff like that. And honestly, Liz honestly did see herself as the victim in this, and I can see why. I don't agree with her, but I see her reasoning. She was being blackmailed, she was basically being abused again, mentally this time. Topher was playing with her loyalties, Eva was blackmailing her with evidence that Liz has killed someone before because he tried to sexually assault her, and she just reacted, saved her own life. And the person who was there to help her in that moment is now the one blackmailing her, Eva. So that's what led Liz to kill Eva. Elliot had information putting the two of them together in the same location when Eva went missing. So Elliot had to go. Then Annie had to go because she knew where Liz was. So that's why she was my favorite character in this book, because she just had a fascinating mind. My favorite parts in this book were when Erin and Liz were all by themselves and Erin began to realize Liz did it. And then Liz began to realize that Erin knew. So they had this little mental chess game going on. Okay, she knows that I know, but does she know that I know? No. It just became a game of testing out each other, seeing how much they did know. A game of Liz trying to poison Erin without Erin showing that she knew Liz was trying to kill her. Pretending that she did drink the coffee and pretending she did die from it so Liz wouldn't try to kill her in a more violent way. That was very interesting, very suspenseful. And it was actually on page 229 when I realized that Liz was the killer, because she thought something up in her head. Maybe it was Erin, they were talking about something. Just how difficult it was for the group who went off to get help. How difficult it would be for them to walk through all the snow the avalanche had caused. And then Liz, up in her head, she said, oh yeah, I know how hard it is to walk through tons of snow. And we know that Liz, at least at this point, because we know after we read the book that she's a very good skier. But when she got introduced, she never skied before. That was her thing. That's what sent her from the ski slopes in order to meet Eva, so she could kill Eva, because her alibi was that she was so scared on the ski slopes to go skiing because she'd never done it before that she went back home. When in reality, she separated to go kill Eva. But yeah, at this point in the book, I'm wait a second, you said you've never skied before. So how do you know what walking through tons of snow is unless you've done it before? That was the final tip that sealed it up. I knew who it was. And then that epic ski chase happened because both of our girls, they had got bum legs at this point. Erin has a sprained ankle. Liz has a really wonky knee because she fell down the stairs. And Erin, she knows that Liz is going to kill her because now Liz knows that Erin knows. So Erin escapes the cabin, gets on her skis, and she is in so much pain, but she manages to go down the slopes. Liz now is chasing her down the slopes too. And it was that epic, twisty, turning, dodging around trees in the dead of night. And then that resolution where Liz just slams up against that cliff and just explodes basically. Wow, what a way to die. Not on my top 10 recommended ways to die. No. It was a very satisfying conclusion, just to a very fun ride. And we know that Topher was like the obvious red herring, but I also like how he had like dimensions on top of his jerkness, and just how fake we can tell Eva was being. Good characters, good plot, good action. And now I can proudly say that I actually liked the Ruth Ware book and recommend it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, stay reading, my friends. Don't go anywhere with snow or with people. One of them or both of them will kill you. Bye-bye.